Bubba built it.
Hey everybody, as you can see behind us here,
There's nothing there.
there's nothing
And
there.
that's a problem.
Well, problem, I don't know. It's a good thing, right? Because you
We'll
know
call
what
it
that means.
opportunity.
Okay, there's an opportunity, but also it means that Bronco
Is not sitting there, which has been sitting there for months as we were finishing it, and now it's
on the ground.
It's not. We're not going to say it's done because they're never never done.
They're never done.
But it's done enough that we made 700 plus miles round trip to Fort Fest and back, and it was just like a trooper.
Yes, yeah, and it was very well received. I mean, we enjoyed it.
We
the
love
drive
it,
up there was
and
fantastic.
yeah,
no problems. Smoothest. Well, we did have one small issue on the way up
yeah.
through Birmingham. We were right in downtown Birmingham.
Oh, let's set the stage first. So we put gas in it immediately after we got it out of here because I had just put just enough in it to crank it up, and so I didn't know how much that was. So I put 7 gallons in. Okay, we're good. Okay. And then I'm like, okay, the gas gauge is not coming up like it's supposed to. What's the deal? What's the deal? Anyway, so we're like, okay, it came up to a quarter of a tank. Like, oh, it's going to be good. Okay, now. Yeah. So we're driving along. We drove it back and forth to the shop once. So it had like 20 miles on it before we headed north. And so Birmingham is about 35 miles from here. And I'm like, this is my classic, is like, let's stop and get gas once we get north of Birmingham. So I'm driving.
You don't want to stop in downtown Birmingham for gas. It's just
well, look. I mean, you know, there's like rules in life.
Yeah, there's rules in life.
You know, you don't. Yeah. Oh, we won't go into that.
Yeah, let's stop.
Okay, but anyway, so I'm driving along, and we're about 10 miles outside of Birmingham. Like, you know what? That gas gauge hasn't moved in a long time. That could be a problem. And we go over.
It's getting excellent fuel economy.
It's like, this is great. So we got over the mountain, and we come down, and it chugs. Oh, did you feel that? I was like, yeah, I felt that. And then it chugged again. I was like, oh, we better get this thing off the road. We're about to run out of gas.
Fortunately, at the exit, there was 2 gas stations. So, and which is, you know, rare actually in downtown Birmingham.
It is.
I think that was like the only.
The good Lord was
right
definitely looking after
Absolutely.
us. But and that's another nice thing about fuel injected cars is they'll generally give you a little bit of a warning because they got that high pressure fuel and it'll just sputter. Anyway, so we put 14 gallons in it, and because we still weren't sure about the gas tank, we didn't fill it up all the way. And we're like, okay, well, the gas gauge still isn't moving off that quarter. But once we started driving it, it inched up and inched up and inched up and inched up. And I think what it is, when we dropped the sending unit all in the tank, that maybe that arm has just gotten a little bent and it's kind of scuffing up against and getting caught against the fuel pump. So anyway, we never had another problem out of it, and
made it all the way up there. Like I said, it was very well received. Oh yeah, hey, one of the awesome things about it, 80 miles per hour, cruise control.
2 fingers on the steering wheel. Yeah. I mean, this is our best driver yet. Yeah. And it ought to be, right? I mean, it's a fully independent suspension. It's a Lincoln Navigator underneath. It's like, it's pretty nice.
It's very nice.
And we'll talk more about perhaps the interior. We haven't said much about it. And that's the thing that really isn't done yet. So that's why perhaps, like I say, we won't go into too much detail. We got some other things we want to do in an upcoming video. We're going to talk about this back glass, okay?
Yeah.
In an upcoming video. This is a problem. I mean, look at this right here. And I worked for literally days on this tailgate trying to get everything right. And the motor works, but it wants to bind. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to ditch the glass. We're going to put a polycarbonate window back in here, kind of a racing style. We're going to make it where you have two buckles and you just lower it down. And it's just going to be lighter. It's going to be easier. It's going to be not fussy.
Way simpler.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in an upcoming video. But anyway.
Right. So, as we were saying earlier, we've got an empty space in there.
Empty space, and we got to fill it with something.
You know what that means. So,
next project.
As you can see, we've got a number 9 on the Bronco because that was our 9th build.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, we number our builds. So everything we build is supposed to be an old race car of some sort, some kind of competition. And so we always number our builds. This is number 9. And so this is our big number 10, 1-0.
Yep.
And we kind of try to keep our projects sort of stacked up like cordwood.
Yeah.
It's a sickness that we have. But this is now, the time has now come for us to do, and I don't want to call it Scraptona 2.0 because it's not going to be Scraptona, but it is going to be another Charger Daytona build, and we're very excited about it.
Yeah. We had, as we've said before, we built Scraptona, and it was great. It's so cool to look at. But we went full race car. We
You-
had
you
that
never go
R5.
full race car.
Never go full race car if you're wanting to drive it on the street.
Yeah,
When we took it out on the track, like Atlanta Motor Speedway, Talladega,
it was
it was
awesome.
amazing. I
But-
mean, it's so awesome. You'd shift those gears, and I mean, it's just, oh, it's sang.
Yeah, so I mean, it was an R5 P7, and for those of you who don't know, that was the first entry that Dodge made back into NASCAR when they introduced it back in the early 2000s. And this engine is amazing. It is a beautiful engine. It's an amazing engine. It is basically a Dodge copy of an R5 piece, of a SB2.
Yeah.
And they took a lot of the things that they wanted to do in the SB2 and kind of incorporate. It was a really sweet engine, but it was a Dodge engine, and unlike the SB2, it did not have a bell housing that was universal. So it had this, I'm going to call it horrible. It was this horrible tilt-in clutch. It was a triple disc, 7 1/8 inch, and it was awesome.
5
But
pounds.
and it had like a 5-pound flywheel, and this thing had the worst throttle rack of anything we've ever driven.
Wow.
If you weren't going 2,800 RPM, it was like, rah, 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 and it was a
wanted
manual.
to go.
It was
It
a manual
wanted to go.
transmission. If it was an automatic, that might have helped. But anyway, so
Yeah.
we learned some tough lessons. Never go full race car if you want to
Never go
drive it
full
on the
race
street.
But we loved the way it looked. I
Yeah.
mean, the wing car, the wide body, it
Yeah.
was just stanced so beautifully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that brings us to this.
Yes.
We came across this little jewel. It's probably about 80 miles south of us.
Yeah. So first of all, affordable 69 or 68 Chargers, 70 Chargers, they're just not. They're not available. And-
well, okay, so that's a relative term.
Okay, so it's
affordable.
still not all that affordable. We're not going to get into the actual dollars, but for us, this was very expensive, even as a core. You know, we're used to paying $500 for our shells, and this shell was a lot more than that. But and also, but it was cheap by Charger standards. And look at this. I mean, this is why. This is not really a restorable car. This is what it is a great bunch of parts. And this, if you remember, so like down here, I mean, all this is really bad. There's holes in the actual roof. That's why this is sitting on here. So the parts, if it drips here, it doesn't get our parts wet. I mean, the quarters, look at this. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. I mean, this thing, I mean.
And as you can see back in there, we got some serious issues in the
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah. Well, like the whole apron back here is rusted out about where the window would go. There's nice big holes there. There's holes where this was. Yeah. Thanks, David. We'll call you if we need you to haul it off for us. That's David. He's our resident cynic, and he's always he's the one that's always.
He's always
He's the voice of doom from afar.
he's always busting our chops.
All right. Oh, in the back apron is it's just
let me
almost
get around there
non-existent.
to show you that.
So look, we almost love showing you how bad it is, just so that you'll know when we cut this thing all to pieces, you're not going to cry a river.
Yeah,
because,
and I know that there are some rabid Mopar guys out there that are going to be like, oh no, this is definitely
what if
restorable.
you want to shut the trunk? Oh, wait a minute. I mean, this thing is, and so look at this right here. I mean, this thing is perfect though for a Daytona conversion because we're going to cut all that out anyway.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there is nothing here.
Look, this thing is literally the worst
That's my
shell
foot.
that we've ever bought. Yeah, this is the worst shell we've ever bought. The rails where the springs attach. I mean, this thing is rough. But here's the thing: the shell is pretty good. I mean, the part that we need.
Perfect for what we need.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so there is the donor, and it came with a bunch of cool parts. So see those full quarters over there, sitting there.
Yep, up there in the rack.
And we got 4 doors with it. We got 4 fenders. There's the fenders up there, stacked up there. So we got a lot of good stuff. It's basically a pile of parts.
Yeah.
And so if you know what we do in our builds, what we generally do is we take a drivetrain and put a shell on it. And that's what this has been. That's what the Horse Force was. That's what really all of our builds are, because it's just such a great way to get a running and driving car without having to custom fabricate every little thing. And if you've ever done one of these, you know that the little things add up to be the big thing. And that's what we try to avoid. And so this has been done before, by the way. So another thing here that's kind of interesting for us is that the Charger on the well, I think you said we're going to put it on Challenger.
Yep.
Okay.
So why don't we go over and show that?
Okay. So if you guys know Charger on Challenger builds, Steve Mirabelli, he's like the reigning king of this, and he's done it several times. And we're going to lean heavily on his experience. We're gonna research his photographs, and that's what that is. It's gonna make us just a lot faster. So this is what we've got here, and this is a rough old Challenger. It's a 13 model, but I mean, it has just been mistreated. It's been wrecked, and on top of all of the insult to injury, the old Eagle 5.7 is blown. So,
completely.
as a matter of fact, not blown, locked up. When a motor is locked up, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
bad.
done. So we pulled the plugs, as you can see here. We got down in here, and I was thinking, I was hoping against hope that we could get this thing to turn, but no, even with no compression, no plugs, you cannot turn this poor old engine. So anyway, we decided though that this is still going to be a great, because we had not much money in this at all. It was very cheap. It was more than scrap price, but not much more. And look here, like you see that right there. Literally, they broke off the dipstick. So that was probably they broke it off and like, you know what? It's probably got oil in it.
It's gonna be
okay.
fine. It's fine.
It's
got
fine.
oil in it. I know.
Yeah, right.
I changed it. You know, what was it? 18,000 miles ago. It's fine.
Yeah, but somebody, and it's got different wheels all the way around. The fenders are beat up. I mean, this thing is it's the perfect candidate. And so let's talk about this too. So we spent more money about a year ago on this one, and it's undercover. This is an SRT8 with a 6-speed, and this is what we were planning on using. And it was a flood car, but when we bought it, they had already flushed the engine, the trans, got it running and driving, and all it really needs is interior electronics, and it's low miles. We're going to use this, and we're like, oh, you know what? It's too nice to take apart. We're going to fix this one, I think. So this was the one that we were going to use, a low mileage SRT8 6-speed. So we're not using this because it's too nice. I mean, the reason it's covered up is because of the wind.
Say that, but it might change.
Oh, you know, who knows? But okay, that's the other thing. So you see this one right here. This is a lot nicer Charger here. Like we said, we like to stack up our projects like cordwood. This one is twice the car that poor old gold one is, but it also to us seems like, okay. So here's the thing: when you're talking about old race cars, it's okay if they're not finished to a high level, right? But that SRT8, the nice interior and all that, we were thinking, well, watertight. It's the thing is, it's going to be hard to make that old gold one to make it watertight because it's like Swiss cheese. So we're thinking maybe this might be a build for the SRT8. Who knows? So we still might cut it up.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, blown engine.
Yeah, blown engine.
Blown engine, burgundy.
That's a serious issue.
Poor old.
We have
Challenger.
done, as you know, with Bronco, we went through several renditions. I'll show you those here on our.
Yeah. We workshop our ideas because the idea, the concept is the most important part. People, they see a car they like and they're like, oh, I like this car, I'm going to build one. And they don't really spend a lot of time beforehand hammering out the backstory, hammering out the theme and all that. So we spend a lot of time on that. And so we're going to workshop this one as well. We have already. We've got about 4 or 5 ideas. We're not 100% sure which one we're going to choose, but we're leaning towards, and hold on to your hats here because we know this is a hot button one, but we're leaning towards doing a General Lee. Oh! Now, even the word General Lee, but it'll be a tribute because General Lee, as we know, was not a Daytona. It was a Charger, but we're going to do a Daytona. Okay, this concept is possibly doing a Daytona tribute to a General Lee. Now, when I was a kid, I was contemporary. This is going to date how old I am, right? I was contemporary to the Dukes of Hazzard series, and I would always draw General Lee's, and I hated the fact that it was an 01. I'm like, this is a problem. Nobody puts an O. That doesn't mean anything. So it's a 10, and I always drew it as a 10, and people would correct me. I was like, I don't care. It's a 10. And so I was telling Lee about this. I was like, remember when I used to draw the General Lee? It was always a 10. So this is our 10th build. We gotta. It almost seems like it's written in the stars that we got to do this. So the idea maybe is to call it the General Leroy, and the idea is that Leroy was one of the stunt drivers on the show, and after the show was over, he grabbed one of the old Hulks that was all crashed up and decided he wanted to build a Daytona out of it. Yeah. And maybe the idea is he wanted to do a land speed car. So, but we're not sure about that. But anyway, the guy's name was Leroy Johnson, and his name was 3-story Leroy because he would jump 30 feet in the air. That was one of his things. They would always call him when they wanted to do a 30-foot jump. So a 3-story Leroy, and he built this car. So it'll be the General Leroy, and we'll put the Alabama flag on the roof so we don't explode anybody's sensibilities. And so that's one of the concepts. Now the other concept is Panther Pink, mod top roof. David next door, he hates this idea, by the way.
Yeah.
But Panther Pink with a mod top roof, and call it something like Daisy's Revenge or something like that, like Daisy built her own version. And then the other idea was leave it this gold color and put some metallic orange and yellow stripes on it and call it like the Disco Daytona, and just have fun with it like that, and still put a 10 on the side because it is our 10th build, like I say. But anyway, these are just a few of the ideas. Let us know what you think about that, because I mean, we aren't settled on it yet, and we always make changes almost up to the last minute.
Yeah, which was what happened on Bronco.
Right.
Now, as we were saying earlier, the Challenger that we have over there, the maroon one, it has a blown engine in it. So obviously we need to find a new power plant, and that's what we did.
Done. Solved.
Yeah.
We got this. We don't know a whole lot about it, okay? Although what we're discovering as we start to dig in is that it looks like it might be an old reman that has never been used. Because we're looking at things like, this is the oil plug out of this thing, and it was brand new.
Yeah.
So
the guy was telling us that he had gotten it for his wife's van.
no, the Jeep.
Jeep.
Yeah, our Grand Cherokee, right? And it came with a transmission too, which we're not going to use. But that part of the story checks out. This part of the story does not check out, because this looks like it's not been in a car at all. Although, here's another thing: it had gotten just a little bit of dampness inside, not enough to make it lock up, but it had a little catch as we turned it over, and we think it's going to be okay. But it's one of the reasons we got such a good deal on it, because it was kind of derelict, even though it looks like now it's brand new. So the next thing we're going to do, probably show you this on videos, we'll take the valve covers off and the oil pan and just do a more thorough check. But this is our Eagle 1, we'll call it, to go in there. For those of you who don't know, there are basically two versions of the 5.7 Hemi, the early engine and the later Eagle. And the Eagle solved a lot of the valve dropping problems of the earlier engines. And it's just an all-around awesome power plant. It loves to rev. It's got a lot of torque. I mean, it's just, man, it's a Hemi. Does that thing got a Hemi in it? It does. It does. So, anyway, here she is. Of course, all this bad horribleness here is not going to matter too much to us, because we're going to wide body this thing, and we're not exactly sure how we're going to wide body. We know how we wide bodied the Scraptona. This one, maybe we'll do more of a smooth fender deal like we did with Horse Force, because now we've learned some new things. I definitely want to make it wider than Scraptona, and that's going to be cool because it was pretty wide.
Yeah.
But stance is one of the biggest things on these kind of builds. And so, once again, concept, stance, these are the two most important things. And after you get that, everything else will kind of come together. But yeah, so this is to introduce you to our next Charger Daytona build, and we are excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And like Michael said, I guess the next one we're going to start tearing into that engine and see what we've got.
What we have, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We rolled the dice.
We got, yeah, exactly. But anyway, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, that was worth it.